Hi there, this is Rich Stoffer, PSP from CFB Edmonton, and I'm here to go over the 5-step recovery cool down with you. This cool down can be done on its own as a more of a recovery session or as a actual cool down from a workout at the end of the workout. So I would definitely, if you're using it at the end of the workout, it is a little lengthy. It's a little long of a process. So if you don't have a lot of time, I would take 2 or 3 of the steps and hit them, say, on Monday kind of thing. Pick another 2 or 3 of the steps, hit them on Tuesday, and kind of go through your week like that. So you're getting a little bit of everything. I would definitely include the breathing at the end as part of it. It only takes 2 minutes. So it can be, or 3 to 5 minutes would be even better, but 2 minutes is kind of a minimum for that one. It can really help recovering and feeling better for the next day, especially if you have to be in a more volume and frequency intense program where things are happening a lot more. You're doing, say, 2-a-day workouts. This can really help. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is some global soft tissue work. This is a little bit different than some soft tissue work you might use a lacrosse ball or the foam roller, which is what I'm going to use today to like really hunt down a really tight spot kind of thing. What you're going to do is some global work. So you're going to roll kind of from end to end. So if I'm picking a muscle group, say I'm hitting the quad, I'm going to work from the very top to the very bottom, the entirety of it. I'm not going to focus on like really getting into one spot. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to spend about 30 seconds on 3 to 5 spots. I'm just going to give you some examples here. There's way more things you can do than the examples here. I'm just going to show you a couple examples and we'll move through it. So this won't quite take the full amount of time of the actual recovery session. So 3 to 5 big spots. I'm going to pick our big muscle groups. I should say I'm going to pick my quads first. So I'm going to set myself up for that. I'm going to be kneeling behind my foam roller. I'm going to go not on top of my kneecaps, but fairly close to them. And I'm just going to work my way up and down just like that. Okay, so I'm just working my way up and down the quad. If you want to turn your toes out a little bit, hit the adductors, that's fine. Totally all right. You can turn your toes back down. And again, you would just do that for 30 seconds. If you're really trying to get after a tight spot, you might spend some time on the spot, do a little bit of oscillation back and forth. For our purposes, for this, we are just going to spend about a minute or so on each side. If you're doing 2 sides at a time like I was, maybe you'll spend just a minute on both of those. You can definitely split it up if you see fit. Next thing we're going to go into is the glutes. Again, same thing. We're going to aim for about 60 seconds per side. Example of how to get that done is you can roll your foam roller this way for the glutes. You can turn it that way if you like. Roll back and forth. I'm going to cross my leg over, and all I'm going to do is roll up and down the length of the glute for that 30 seconds. Obviously, I do the same thing on the other side. Again, we're not looking for that really tight spot. You're just trying to hit the entirety of that muscle working up and down. Another big muscle group you might want to hit is the hamstrings. So again, face you guys for this one. You're going to get your leg out straight. Start right below kind of your butt cheek there. And you're just going to work your way down. This one's a little tougher to kind of work through the whole muscle in one kind of smooth motion. But if you kind of figure it out, you can do it. Obviously, you can do both sides at the same time. That's totally fine. This is a really good way to get kind of superficial on this one. You're not getting super deep. If this blue foam roller is not enough, we've got some black ones you can use. But again, 30 seconds. We've done a couple of lower body things now. We're going to do a couple upper body. I'm going to choose my lats. Again, another big muscle group on your back. How you kind of hit that is you go down on the foam roller, one arm over your head, and you're just going to search around from top to bottom. Again, not focusing on any one spot. You can feel free to look at the ceiling, kind of hit a different part of your lat, get more into your armpit. If you come forward, and obviously you do that on both sides. Again, for longer than I'm doing it here, I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, all the way up and down the lat. Again, I got a little bit of a tight spot. I'm going to resist temptation to really work in that tight spot, my armpit there, looking up at the ceiling, making sure I'm getting the whole lat, just bringing blood to the area. We're not, again, focusing on any particular spot. Last place I'm going to hit is the pecs. And all I'm going to do for that is from that lat position, I'm just going to roll forward and get into my pecs. Because the pecs are a little bit smaller, the lats are a little bit potentially less surface area, than legs, less so for the lats, more so for the pecs. You don't have to spend quite as much time there as you would on a bigger muscle group. You just want to make sure you spend a little bit of time in each spot, obviously. Hit both sides, and then move on. So again, that's just an example of some global soft tissue work. I hit, I think, 5 spots in there through lower body, 2 upper body. If you wanted to hit the calves instead of the hamstrings, or you know, do a little bit more lower body than upper body, that's totally fine. It's just important that you hit, again, 3 to 5 areas, 3 being the minimum. I mean, you're running out of time, you only do 2, that's fine. Obviously, doing the full cool down is better. Okay. Again, if you're a little tight for time at the end of the workout, you're better off to do a cool down that just picks a couple pieces of this as opposed to skipping it altogether for certain. All right, next thing we're gonna do is some biphasic stretching. So all that means is we're gonna find a stretch, and we're gonna get into that stretch, and we're gonna work towards the end of the range of motion with a slight hold or some oscillation. Okay, so what that's gonna look like, and then we're gonna follow it with a static stretch. Okay, so what that's gonna look like is I'm gonna hit my hamstrings first. Okay, I'm gonna put one leg straight, one leg's bent like this with my hand on the other side of my leg here. I'm gonna go up with my chin on my chest, and I'm just gonna go move very slightly into that stretch. I'm gonna oscillate that for 30 seconds. If this isn't quite as comfortable for you, you can also do 5-second holds and 5-second relaxes, that's fine. I like the oscillation a little bit better. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find a way to hit that same muscle group with the static stretch. So if you can kind of relax into this stretch, that's fine. I personally like to sometimes switch up the position. I'm still getting my hamstring if I do my classic hurdler stretch, either by grabbing the toe or by simply bringing my chest up and pushing my chest towards that toe right there. Either way, I can hit my hamstring, and I'm gonna hold on to that for about 30 seconds. Once I've done, you can do up to 60 seconds, but 30 seconds, again, a little tighter for time, that's just fine. Especially if you're doing it as a cool down. You wanna go towards the shorter end of things. If you're doing it as a zone recovery session, obviously you can stretch it out a little bit more. I would do the same thing, obviously on the other side, a little bit of oscillation here. Once I hit my 30 seconds to a minute of oscillation, or again, 5 seconds down, 5 seconds up, whatever, then you're gonna get into your 30 seconds of maintained stretch there. 30 seconds to a minute, again. And again, while you're doing this, even with the foam rolling stuff, really throughout the whole process, making sure your breathing is gonna be very important, okay? All right, so that's the second thing, okay? Actually, I'll give you a couple more examples, I guess I should. So for biphasic stretching, another thing I'm gonna try to hit is my quads, okay? So I'm gonna go with this one, I'm gonna go right up against the wall, and this time I'm not gonna change my position. I'm just gonna stick with this position for the whole thing. So I'm gonna get my left knee back into the wall here, tucked right into the corner. I'm gonna get my right foot up. If you can't get this one, you can grab a chair or something to grab onto. And I'm just gonna oscillate into a tolerable position here. I'm just squeezing my glutes on this leg and pushing myself back with this leg. My hands are just here to kind of support myself. Just gently pushing back, oscillating, and then I'm just gonna hold that stretch. Again, I could get into a different position here. I find this one relatively comfortable. I really like it actually. If I've got a chair or something to lean on, I can just lean into my leg here. I can take some nice deep breaths for about 30 seconds to a minute. Then when that's done, all I'm gonna do is switch sides. Always a good idea to kind of note, like, okay, look at this. My right side is way tighter than my left side. Maybe I'll focus up on my right side a little bit more. I'll do maybe 30 seconds on the left side as for my recovery sessions. Maybe I'll hit a whole minute for the oscillations and the holds on my right side. And then once that feels comfortable, I'm going to get into the static stretch for the 30 to 60 seconds. And because I noticed I'm extra 10, I'm going to make you guys watch me do another 10 or so seconds here, see if I can't loosen this right side up a little bit. Okay, so another couple options. We'll do a couple upper body options now here for that static stretch or the oscillation to static stretch. I like to use kind of like a child's pose for this one. So what I do is I get out front just like this with my hands, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cheat. I'm going to oscillate to both sides. Nice and slow here. Just like that. Once I got my 30 seconds, I'm just going to breathe into this position right here. And just relax there for about 30 seconds. Once 30 seconds is up, we can move on to, again, any static stretch followed by, or any stretch, and then just oscillating near the end range. Not quite, I wouldn't go pushing that. Shouldn't be a 10 out of 10 stretch by any means. It should just be a pretty good stretch followed by a little bit of relief, and you're just going to gently oscillate back and forth, and then you go into the static stretch. You might work your way into a deeper stretch if you feel it start to relax, especially if you feel relax getting into the back end of that 60 seconds if you are indeed holding the stretch for 60 seconds. Next thing we're going to do is flow mobility sequence. I personally like to use World's Greatest Stretch for this. There is, any yoga flow sequence you've ever done before would work great. It is just as good, maybe even better than the World's Greatest Stretch. This is the one I tend to use the most, so I'm going to show you this one. I'm going to get my right leg forward, my left leg back, and squeeze a glute on my left leg. Pause there for just a second. Look over that forward leg, exhale into that. Get that left arm up in the air, squeezing my glutes still to get into that deep stretch. Then I'm going to bring my hands down, drop my back leg, or slide my back leg towards the wall behind you. Hand goes down, up just like this. Basically for this, you kind of want to make sure you're inhaling and exhaling along with the way you're moving. Generally speaking, if something's more of a stretch, you want to be exhaling into that. If it's a relaxed position, you can take that opportunity to inhale. Again, I hit the other side. And all I'm going to do, if you warm up, you might be hitting these positions for a little bit longer. But as I'm doing it here, I'm just kind of breathing into it. Maybe get a little bit more hamstring in there. And I would do that, or maybe I go from that flow to a different one. You can repeat the same thing again, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Or if you wanted to get into another stretch, you certainly could. This one certainly is pretty linear. If you wanted to do something maybe a little bit less so, like a 90-90 hip stretch with transitions, mix that in there, that would be fine. As long as you're doing it for looks like 3 to 5 minutes, or 2 to 5 minutes, pardon me. Okay, so maybe I'm done with that one. Maybe I can move into something like this right here where I rock back into a nice little adductor stretch. I throw some extension, rotation in there. I move over, do the same thing. Maybe I do a couple reps here. As long as you're kind of flowing and the body's moving through space, one thing kind of moves into the other stretch, and you're not spending a lot of time in the bottom or the end of each stretch, totally fine. We're basically just trying to get the blood moving around the body, not quickly, but the body is moving and in more or less constant motion. We're not spending a lot of time sitting around like I am right now. Again, 2 to 5 minutes. It can be, again, any yoga flow, anything like that, anything like the World's Greatest Stretch. The fourth point, or the fourth step on the recovery would be basically just, for lack of a better term, you're going to walk. You're going to walk, you could hop on the bike, you could do elliptical, whatever, but super low impact, super low intensity. 2 minutes is all I'm going to ask you to do. So you can get up. If I'm in the unarmed combat room here, I might get up and walk around in circles for 2 minutes. 1 lap of the field track, or field house track, you can definitely get that done there. Just go back to your mat, and you're going to finish up with some positional. This is the 5th step, parasympathetic breathing. Okay, 3 to 5 minutes of this. You got a couple options if you're familiar with box breathing, and that's easy for you to kind of latch onto. Feel free to get the box breathing done. Okay, one thing I'm going to encourage you to do, hopefully I'm not too loud here, is find something to elevate your feet on. Okay, it doesn't have to be a whole bunch. Okay, but a little bit of elevation definitely helps. So what that's going to look like is, got my feet slightly elevated, and I'm going to relax just like this right here. Okay, so I'm in a position where I'm basically flexing no muscles. You can have your hands down by your side, or sides like this if you want to. I'm like, that's fine. Whatever kind of puts the least amount of tension through your body. I like to put my hands on my stomach, my diaphragm kind of area, so I can feel myself breathing. But again, that's my preference. So as long as the legs are a little bit elevated, we're basically relaxing the body as much as possible. Again, if you're going to use the box breathing, you're just going to go to 4 seconds in of breathing, 4 seconds holding with the air in your lungs, 4 seconds breathing out, and 4 seconds holding the air out of your lungs. And I personally like to work up to those things. So when I'm doing the positional breathing, I'll start with 2 seconds, and then if that feels good, I'll go to 3 seconds. Most people will find as they exhale, that's the part that they have the most amount of time. Like if you try to go to 4 seconds right away with air out of your lungs, you might even get a little bit of that mini panic going on because the air's out of your lungs. That's the opposite of what we want to do. So I really like to, maybe I go 4 seconds all the way around the box, but I start that side at 2, the breath out at 2, then the next one's 3, then the next one's 4, and then I can go into my 3 to 5 minutes of positional parasympathetic breathing. So I mentioned the box breathing. There's a couple other options. Another option we'll talk about anyway. You're going to inhale for 3 to 4 seconds, hold the air in for 2 to 3 seconds, and exhale long, exhale over 6 to 8 seconds. Anybody that's worked with me before, I talk a lot about pursed lip breathing specifically for lifting stuff, but this can also apply here. So you're going to kind of squeeze your lips together like you're trying to get as much air that way as possible, kind of make your lips a nice small hole to get the air through. That can kind of help stretch out that breath. You don't need to breathe out super aggressively kind of thing. Just a nice kind of controlled push through the lips is just fine. It doesn't have to be crazy aggressive because again, we're not trying to amp up, we're trying to kind of ramp down after the workout. So that's how we would do that. We do that for 3 to 5 minutes, 10 cycles of the box breathing, a few more of the other one. There's no specification for holding the air out for the second option there. So if you kind of really don't like holding the air out of your lungs, that one can be a good way to go. But try both and see what you like. So once again, our 5 stages are global soft tissue, so some foam rolling basically for 3 to 5 areas, depending on what kind of time you got left. Again, not point specific or searching for really tight spots and not spending a lot of time there. It should be more or less relaxing. If you have 2 foam rollers, a really aggressive one and a lighter one, I'd choose a lighter one for this because we're not trying to get get that reflex of ow, this hurts kind of thing, that pain reflex. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to relax. So that's the first one. Global soft tissue, then extended biphasic. That is a stretch, a more dynamic style stretch or an oscillating stretch near the end range of motion, but not at the end range of motion, and then hold dynamic stretch and let that relax, and potentially your end range of motion will increase throughout that, and that's fine, but you don't want to force anything with that. Again, this is a relaxation session. We're trying to bring things down. Then we're going to do flow mobility sequence. So that's kind of your thing, which looks like yoga. I like the world's greatest stretch, but again, you pick whatever you want to. There's a bunch of things. Yoga's been around for a long time, so they got more ideas than I do, I'm sure. Next up, point 4 is your low intensity steady state. So a simple walk around the track, couple of walks around the unarmed combat room if you're in here, whatever, 2 minutes, that's all we're looking for. You can actually really do this for 10 plus minutes as its own kind of thing if you want to get a low intensity conditioning session on, but totally fine, whatever you want to do. 2 minutes is just fine. Then the 5th step is a positional parasympathetic breathing step. And that's the one where, again, you're going to find yourself a nice quiet spot, elevate your feet, and you're just going to lay down and breathe, again, using your diaphragm to kind of push your hands up if your hands are there, just being aware of your breath and trying not to think about anything else that's going on, just thinking about your breathing for, again, 3 minutes is not that long. You can think about your grocery list later. All right, so that is enough of me talking about this. If you have any questions about this or anything's unclear, you guys know where to email me, and you can give me a shout. Thanks.